Hi, everybody, and welcome to another 4D Method 4D user group meeting. Today is April 30th, 2025. This is meeting number 79, item number 79. It's going to be a good one. On the agenda today, we're going to just do my quick spiel about what we're doing here with the user group, talk a little bit about the upcoming user group presentations. I'll have Kirk chat a little bit about his gatherings, his happy gatherings, the happy hour, and what's been talked about since we last met here. We'll get some 4D blog. Oh, sorry, I skipped one. We'll talk to Jim Sobchak over at 4D to get some of the recent news from the 4D company themselves. We'll see what's been published in the blog recently. Always just a lot of great content on the blog. We'll get to that later, though. As well, we'll see what's of note in the knowledge base. Ad will highlight one of the recent tech notes that was just published. And then we'll get to the main feature, why we all come here. The special topic for today is beautiful documentation made easy from Jim Kerver. So my name is Brent Raymond. Many of you know me already, but if you don't, I organize these 4D user groups. Our website is 4dmethod.com. A lot of great content on there. Old posts, old videos, new posts, all kinds of valuable information. You can reach me at 4dmethod@gmail.com. I'm a longtime 4D developer. I'm always interested in what other people do with 4D. It gives me inspiration, and it's good to be inspired. We all do better work when we've got great ideas and share those in places like this and the happy hour and on the forum and otherwise. This is what I like to call the global online 4D user group. But yeah, it is one of the main places to get together and show presentations like this for everyone in the world. All of our scattered community of developers and 4D users. You don't even have to be a fancy Flash developer. Just show us how you're using your application for one of these presentations. But it is a great place to share new programming techniques. See where you know, it's always surprising. See where 4D is deployed in the world. I was just chatting with Jim earlier. There's always these huge operations that you that may not have even known were out there, and then all of a sudden you find out 4D is running the shop next door. But it's also a great place to find 4D development support. And again, like I mentioned, it's a great place to get great ideas for your own application. So this is your support community, and you can see a wealth of old recordings of great developers showing off great tips, great applications that they write. And it's a great place for you to show off your application, your product, or just some things you've been working on. On June 18th, we'll welcome back Bruno Raymakers to show us what he's doing working with 4D lists, hierarchical lists, as objects. Not form objects, which they are, but language objects, which can really change how you how easily you're able to work with some of these form objects and complex interfaces you can make with them. The schedule for upcoming presentations can be found at 4dmethod.com/schedule or on the on the top menu of the website. We do have some open dates, so if you've been thinking about when am I going to do this? When is it my turn? Well, there's August 6th and November 5th open this year. Or if you even don't like to do it live, just record if you want to do a recording. That way you can do it 20 times in the in your own piece of your own home and make sure all the mistakes are deleted. You can do that too, and we'll share the content either way. So yeah, just send a topic to me for what you might like to present, and we'll get you on the schedule. And if you don't, I might have to take one of those dates because I like doing one of these every now and again. So I'm just going to kick it over to Kirk to talk a little bit about what's been going on in the 4D happy hour that happens each week, where it's always a lot of great content discussed instead of these meetings, which happen less frequently.
Well, thank you, Brent. And it's always nice to be here. And thanks for giving me a little time. Pardon me. I have got a terrible cold and cough thing going on. So if I suddenly mute myself, that's the deal. But 4D Happy Hour has been going strong. We continue to meet every Friday afternoon. This is 2:30 Pacific time. Put the link in the chat to the website that also gives you the Zoom link to join in. And before we got started here, Jim and I were chatting a little bit. Jim is a longtime attendee, I guess, of 4D Happy Hour, and he was, pointing out how just a discussion, discussions on the 4D Happy Hour led to him deciding to put together this presentation because we were impressed. We encouraged him to do that. So there's a lot of good talk and a lot of good ideas that are exchanged, and plus it's just a opportunity for anybody to bring something in, share a screen, and ask a question like, "Gee, how do you do this?" And in fact, I received a really lovely note a week or two ago from someone who'd stopped in the happy hour with something, and and he showed what he was working on, and of course everybody jumped in, in the end, he just he really was impressed by how much information he got out of that and how helpful it was, and that was something that was just very touching. I always appreciate it when I get that kind of feedback from somebody that it's like, man, I just never would have imagined that I could have figured this out so easily, and you guys really helped. So that's what we do. Anybody is welcome. There's a lot of really good coders, long-time 4D people there. Frequently, there's a lot of new 4D folks there just trying to just sitting back and listening to what we talk about. And what we talk about are technical things. We talk about the business side of 4D. We talk about how to find clients, how to find work. It's a great opportunity to network just in all sorts of ways. So I encourage anybody to drop by whenever you can on Friday evening. Back to you, Brent.
Thanks, Kirk. Yeah, hope your cold gets better there. I would encourage everyone to feel free to drop in. It's an easy crowd, and in any one of these happy hours, not even it sounds crazy to say, but there are literally hundreds of years worth of 4D experience in the room. I'm not just saying with
And
Kirk.
just
That's
the
yeah.
three of us, yeah.
Yeah, right. But no, it's the experience runs deep, and people want nothing other than to see successful projects and to solve problems and to chew on interesting challenges. So yeah, thanks for organizing that, Kirk. I know it's always uh, it's nice of you to always be there for the community. Yeah.
Happy to do it.
So now kicking it over to Jim at 4D to give us a little update about what's going on with 4D, the company itself.
Great. Thank you, Brent. Greetings from 4D. Yeah, regarding the happy hour, I guess Ricardo went to one. Ricardo from Mello from 4D went to one, and now he's totally hooked. And he reports to us how great they all are. So hopefully we're getting more 4D people in those meetings. So thanks for doing that, Kirk. Yeah, so greetings here. Thank you, Brent, for inviting Ed and myself to participate in these meetings. We always get a kick out of them, and it's great to touch base with the worldwide 4D community. We don't get to do that very often these days, but these meetings are great for that. We're looking forward to Jim's presentation on beautiful documentation made easy. I think documentation is so important these days, right? With applications and it sounds intriguing using DocuSource. I'm a little bit familiar with that, but not with deploying with GitHub pages. So that should be a pretty interesting presentation. Looking forward to that. I know Brent's going to cover the R release feature release cycle, but just a reminder that we did release 4D R8 earlier this month, and hot on the heels of that release was 4D R9 beta. And whenever we release a beta of a feature release or an R release, we get a plethora of blog posts on blog.4d.com. And it was the same this time. I think we had like 10 or 11 new blog posts in just a couple of days after R9 was released. And I'm sure that as a long-time 4D developer, like most of you, not a developer myself, but like most of you guys as developers, but I'm really impressed by the blog posts that are out there now. It seems to get better and better, and now talking more and more about AI in the blog posts. And I know that Brent's going to cover that, but it's really enlightening for me to see all the people in 4D that are participating in that. So yeah, and many thanks to those of you who attended Will's and Ad's release webinar last month on R7 and R8. We had a ton of people in that one. It was really good. Maybe because there was two R releases covered in one. But I think they're just getting better. I think the fact that Ad's doing a lot of demos now in those webinars makes them a lot better. So we're glad you're doing that. And then while we're on the topic of webinars, we launched the new webinar series, and the first one was Thomas Mall's presentation on strict typing and 4D. Yep, that's the one. Really well attended, and we got great feedback on that. And of course, Thomas is a very experienced developer and so knowledgeable about 4D that I knew it was going to be great, but it surpassed my expectations for sure. And so we'll continue in that series. That was the first one in 4D webinar. The next one will be May 28th, entitled, that's it, 4D Write Pro, all new from 20.0 to 20R10. So he's going back to 20.0 and then forward to R10, which of course is not even out yet. But Roland is the guru of 4D Write Pro. So most of the blog posts about 4D Write Pro are his. He's the guy that knows that product more than just about anyone in 4D. And when we have questions about 4D Write Pro internally, we always use him as a resource. So that should be really interesting. He's a good presenter as well. Let's see, just a couple last things. So we're still getting in the sales group here, we're still getting a fair amount of questions about subscription pricing and deployment of standalone applications now that we've removed unlimited desktop from the 4D Developer Edition. So if you have any questions about either that subscription pricing or standalone applications, feel free to contact your sales rep or myself, and we'll find a solution for you with either one of those processes. So, but a lot of questions from the community about that. So, and then lastly, I wanted to mention the partner page that if you read the last partner newsletter, there's a button in there at the end of the partner newsletter to submit information about your company as a 4D partner, right? I know that we used to have a 4D partner page that talked about what your company did and whether you were taking referrals or not, what your expertise was, how long you've been in the 4D community, et cetera. So we're kind of rejuvenating that idea, and we're going to have a new partner page that will be that same information, but we really need you all to participate. So if you look at the last partner newsletter, there's just a button there. Click to submit the information about your company. I think it's super important for not only the developers, but customers who are coming into 4D, and we had that information available. They'd be able to get the information about you out there. So again, it's in the last partner newsletter. You'll see a link in there to submit information about your company, or just you as a developer, whatever. So I think that's it for me, Brent.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Well,
Appreciate the time.
thank you. Thank all of you at 4D for taking part in every one of these meetings and bringing us the news. I guess I'd forgotten to mention, you brought up the newsletter. It
Mhm.
was in the newsletter that the 4D summit's been delayed. The 4D conference that was going to happen in the fall, that's now going to be in the spring of next year.
Next year, that's correct. Yeah. We the reason being, I think we sent this out in an email blast that we're delaying the release of 4D21 until the beginning of next year. That was part of the same email blast that we sent out for technical reasons. Mostly we had stuff in there that we had to wait to get released before we could release. So we didn't think it was a good idea to have a summit right before the release of a new product, 4D21. So we wanted to do after, like we usually do. So we have a lot of new things to talk about. So that's why we postponed the summit, just kind of because we're on the heels of 4D21.
Is there any chance that now that it's been postponed, that there would also be a North American event as well,
It's
or
not in the plans right now. The the original intent obviously was to have just a global summit in Paris. So that's still our plan. We're just postponing it. So this will still be a global summit in Paris. Um, Dates to be announced for sure. But yeah, nothing planned for the US next year at this time.
okay? All right. Well, thanks, Jim. Paris is I've heard Paris is nice in the springtime.
Oh yeah, you
So
talked about that, right?
yeah, it should that should be fun if we can all get there.
Hmm.
But yeah, as Jim mentioned, 20R8 was recently released, and I think he said the word of the day is plethora. For for those of you who don't know that word, it just means a lot and great variety of features in this release. 20R8 specifically brings us, among other things, advanced HTTP request handlers. It's just a really nice update on how you how you serve pages from 4D applications. Gives you a nice class and callbacks associated with that, or functions structure. It gives you the ability to debug 4D in Visual Studio Code, which is really nice. We saw some of that in our last meeting. So, yep, won't have to go into that in detail, but that's nice features that they've been bringing us for developing 4D outside of 4D. Then the ability to build evaluation applications. That's basically you can compile an application that has a limited time frame for use, where you can build it, you can still build it, you can still get it in front of the customer. It's always been a strength of 4D that as we say, it's a rapid application building environment, something like that. If I get as I butcher the acronym, but rapid is part of it. So you want to be able to build it, get it in front of your customer, and not have to worry about working out the licenses in the meantime, so that you can nail down that project for the future. R8 also brings us a new class to perform TCP connections. That's pretty much is what it sounds like. More modernization of the classic language. There's also features for notarization on Mac OS, which brings changes to the component structure. structure of components. If you use components, which many of us do, I know we've converted a lot of old utility code to components at the museum, and changes like this specifically will require you to rebuild your components built with R7 or previous versions of 4D. There's also updates for smarter syntax checking in the form editor. It lets you know if one of your formulas for a form object has an error in it, which is very nice. And there's the new mode for direct typing, which is a big step away from the old compiler methods. So you can see a list of all of those featured features and the blog 4D20R8, that link at the bottom of this page. But there's always other deeper other blog articles that go into these topics in much deeper detail, much further detail, which is a good segue to our page on what's been coming out in the blog, which most of this is R9 related, I believe. And there's a lot, so I'm just going to try and get through this quick. But if you didn't see it, a big one just came out this week, or I think it was Monday. Boy, it's a real nice one. Unlock the power of AI with 4D AI Kit. Automate, create, and innovate. It's a 4D component that has a lot of very useful classes, some of which are text generation and chat. These are effectively gives you a really good entry point to introducing these AI-powered features in your application. So the text generation and chat, vision analysis, a way to automate image recognition in your app, image generation, that's creating unique visual content, text moderation, and advanced workflows for combining multiple models. Boy, I forgot what that one was, but there's a lot of capabilities that that you can immediately jump on using this component, and I'm sure they'll be continuing to build out the AI features offerings in that component so that you can get right in there and have put that all important AI prompt button in your application and start telling your customers and potential customers all about it. Then there's another great article that just came out, I think yesterday, that has to do with effectively using AI in 4D Write Pro. You can have a AI help panel, so to say, chat panel beside your content creation in 4D Write Pro, in your 4D Write Pro view, where you can have it help you write the content for you. It effectively is just a nice integrated prompt into 4D Write Pro. Really nice stuff. Then there's an article on enhancing macOS privacy and security with application UUID. That's just working within security restrictions of the macOS and helping to make it so you don't have to re-release your application or re-verify your application every time you rebuild it, at least not quite as much. And then there's one on using classes in embedded web areas with $4D. That's a really nice integration where you can use this new command WA set context to give an associated class instance to a web area so that all of the functions in that class are available within JavaScript. Really cool stuff. Just each of these R versions are packed with goodies for the language. And they've added warnings on deprecated language elements. One of the things that stood out to me is the C underscore compiler directives you'll now get warnings on those. Of course, you can deactivate the warnings if you don't want to see them, don't want to be reminded that there's other ways of refactoring and writing this code. But yeah, so that's you'll now see warnings on deprecated language in the 4D method editors. Then there's edit and debug component methods and classes in 4D from the host project. As I mentioned, we used several components of our own creation at the museum, and this will make it much easier to update at least their shared methods and classes from our host application, our main application, without having to run another instance of 4D in parallel with the component code in it and relaunch everything to see how it works in your host. Very nice for anybody who relies on components, which is a nice way to operate. And finally, follow 4D version, a smarter way to manage your dependencies. This is also geared towards using components in the new dependency manager. This is, instead of having your project be directed to use the latest version of a component, you can direct it to only use the latest version of a component that is compatible with your current version of 4D. So that's a nice update to the dependency manager. Okay, so like I mentioned, there's a lot of great new articles, and that's not even mentioning all of them. Yeah, check out the blog for more details and how do I databases and applications for each of these articles and topics. Really good stuff. And now I'm going to hand it over to Ad to talk a little bit about some other great content that comes out in the knowledge base.
Thanks, Brett. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my segment, which is very short, and I'll try to be very precise and informative about what we're delivering through our knowledge base. So, as a reminder, all the latest content, specifically tech notes, are available only for 4D partners. So, many of you have been in partner program for many years, and I'm sure you have downloaded many of our tech notes, and hopefully they will be beneficial to your project as well as any future project that you may be working on or planning to work on. So for this month, again, just yesterday, we published a brand new tech note. This one came from one of our senior staff, Nat Doe, and we want to always cover, not only introduce some of the nice feature from 4D, but also talked about how to use it in effectively or in a way that you might not be thinking of. So for this particular tech note, we are covering the topic of shared singleton class. So for those of you who may have already attended the previous webinar, and I think this is a feature that came from R5, 20R5, may have already seen it. For this particular tech note, we are focusing on how to use it as a way to store global variable. And for many of us who's been using inter-process variable in the past, kind of understand what that means, and to be able to move forward to a new architecture and be able to utilize preemptive processing, the inter-process variable will need to kind of be removed and be replaced with something new. And we are focusing on that within this tech note. So as you go along with the tech node, you'll be able to have an example to go along with it. I think not cover many topics, starting from just some introduction about what the share object is, how does the shared class function and what does it do, and also going over the shared singleton class concept. And also with many examples that cover how you can replace your global variables with the utilization of shared singleton class. So again, many of our tech notes will always come with an example that will help you learn and sometimes can be just copy and paste from one project to another and can be used right away. So hopefully you can get some good use out of this. Okay, and that is all from me. Thank you, Brent.
Thank you, Ed. Yep, it's definitely worth looking into. If you haven't made the jump to project mode, your project, if you have an application of any size and age, you probably have it littered with inter-process variables, and this is a pretty good approach to a way to convert those usages into something far more modern. So yeah, thanks to you and your team for making these nice white papers available. Really great stuff, always. All right. And now on to our main presentation. Today we have Jim Kerver here, who studied biotechnology in Amsterdam in the Netherlands, and then immediately started working at Irabov in the analytical lab. He got started automating parts of the lab process in the in-house 4D application. Let's see if I got this right. Ziphium.
Yeah, Cepheum.
Ziphium. All right. But that's not all he does. He's played guitar in several bands and worked previously as a sound mixer for live bands. Today, Jim joins us not from the Netherlands, but from Mexico, where he moved to a couple years ago after the COVID lockdown was lifted. He's here to show us how beautiful documentation can be made easy. So welcome, Jim, and thanks for providing this presentation for us.
Well, thank you, Brent, for the lovely intro.
You're welcome.
I kind of relied on it, so I don't have my own introduction for myself, but I do have an introduction for the company Iribov, because as I understand that no one really knows what it's about, but it is using 4D since 1990, was it 4, 6? For a long time. One of those classic 4D stories where someone thought, hey, I want to make a database. Hey, let's use 4D. And it has been used ever since and been growing ever since. So if I could share my screen.
Oh, yep. I'll just stop my share. Go ahead.
Yes. And then I have to the big screen. Let's see if it's the right one. And a presentation. Do you all see it?
Yes.
Good. Okay. So yeah, Iribov. I'm going to talk a little bit about the company. It's a short presentation. And then we're going to start with Docusaurus itself, where I'd like to show you the example website that I've made, and then go through how to set it up, actually, so you can make it for yourself. So Iribov itself is a family-owned company since 1992, and I think quite soon after they started 4D, or our CEO himself started using 4D to create his own system. But the funny thing, the name itself comes from Iris breeding bovenkarspel, because the first project of Iribov was in the crop Iris, and they have been located first in Bovenkarspel. It's a place in the Netherlands, and combining those two together created the name Iribov, and now a lot of people think it's not Dutch. But Iribov is an independent laboratory where we do a lot of things for clients. So it's a service provider for breeding and young plant production companies. Little spelling error. So in the Netherlands, the seed production is a big part of our income in our area. So there's a lot of breeders and companies that sell seeds like Syngenta, Enza are some of the big ones. I think Beosade, Bayer has a part now. So a lot of those kinds of companies also come to us for several services, actually. and we can support them in their breeding programs. So Earbuff itself, over the years, has built a strong technical base for a broad range of laboratory services and a broad range of crops to apply it to. So we have about over 500 customers worldwide, have about 600 employees and growing on 4 different locations. Where the locations are in the Netherlands, which is the first picture on top, Heergewaard, Macedonia, in Vinica, if I say it correctly, which is the second picture, and a third one in Ghana, and they are currently building a new location in Ghana, so they are going to move and expand over there. And the most recent one is in Brazil, so I don't have a good picture of that location yet. And that's the most recent one, so also across the ocean, closer to where I am actually now. So within Erebov, we have a lot of different services. These are a few to highlight. The largest one in terms of production, revenue, and people is the plant tissue culture, where we take plants and multiply them within the laboratory. So about every 6 weeks, you can cut parts of the plants off, put them into a new pot, and then they start growing, and that's how you multiply your plants. And that's a lot quicker than waiting a year or two and then having seeds and then multiplying like that. We also have some plant health diagnostics, which is part of the analytical lab where I used to work. Plant breeding is a little bit in support of both. Usually the companies itself have their own breeding program where they say like, oh, we breed apples and we want to make them sweeter, or we have strawberries and we want to make them bigger. But sometimes we can support in that as well because we have the tissue culture, we have the analytical lab, and we can help breeding with those systems in place. Plant and seed quality, also part of the analytical lab where we can test the plant that someone has made or the seeds that they want to sell. How high is the quality? Do we have any abnormalities in them? And how much percentage of our seeds have that? Furthermore, the greenhouse and indoor facilities, where usually after tissue culture, a plant gets grown into a jar and it's all really nice and moist and a lot of sugars. But as soon as you put it outside, it just falls over and dies quickly. So you need to introduce it slowly to more of the harsh outside conditions compared to the nice inside conditions. And we do that in our greenhouse. There's also a lot of other specialties they do. They do a lot of tests with different colors lights and a lot of different kinds of greenhouse and indoor facilities. Furthermore, there's also the genomics, also part of the analytical lab where we can analyze DNA of the plants more, I would say more elaborately compared to the plant health diagnostics and plant and seed quality. But also mostly projects on a request basis, or if we do already have experience with that crop, it's easier to implement. So after saying all this, what the company does, almost everything, I would say everything, is at least tracked in our 4D application. So that's sometimes it's part of the planning, sometimes it's part of the results in the analytical lab. It's tracking a lot of different things, sending, receiving, greenhouse, tissue culture. The basis where the system was built on is plant tissue culture, because it's a special kind of production where you have to take your stock, let's say you have 100 plants, and you want to make 500, you have to take those 100 and convert them into 200 plants. And then you convert them into 400 plants. And then you convert them into 800. And then you have enough for those 500. So it's a special thing to think of, like how do you plan that? How do you do all that? And especially at the time, and I think there's still not much available, there's not much software that does that for you. At least not at shelf-ready software that's made for tissue culture. So that's why it started, and it has grown a lot. I think that's a part of Erebov itself. So I'm a developer at Erebov full-time. And let's go to the example website, which I should also share in the chat if I can find it. Yeah. So Docusaurus and the example website that I've made. This is an example of the landing page, which I have adjusted slightly to there's a dark mode and a light mode just built in. And I've changed the colors according to the 4DMethod logo. And if we go into it, the introduction, and this whole presentation is inspired by the building developer.4d.com, the earlier 4D method that was referenced in the, let's see, in the thing as well. And I've watched that the first time and I thought, oh, interesting how they built the documentation website. And I think it's been months later that I thought, hey, I want to build better documentation instead of a Word document or a lot of comments in the source code. Or I think we even used OneNote at some point, which is not that nice for documentation. And that's where I got the, hey, light bulb. Let's just see if I can use Docusaurus. Because the way it was presented here was more of a higher level architecture. How you use Docusaurus, how they use it to implement all of their changes and to keep it up to date with the whole team. But using Docusaurus, you can also just make it for yourself, and it's actually relatively easy. And I want to go through that with you today. So what we see here is just the basic Docusaurus website. There's a landing page, which you can customize. I haven't done it much here. You can go do your documentation, which I've renamed to tutorial. And there's a blog section where, yes, Brent, you're also here,
Nice.
where you can make blog posts. And it is kind of similar if you either make a blog post or adjustment to the documentation. You can just change the text, upload it, and then it's live. Let me show you how that works. So we'll go into it later, but I'm using Obsidian. If I go to a blog and say, welcome here, or what did I name mine? Ah, yeah, welcome, the 4DMethod one. So I can add any text that I want and upload it easily. And I go over the tools and the things that I use. So here's VS Code. I'm just using it for the, yeah. I've made a change. I haven't put it up to the Git changes yet, but I don't need to right now. I just want to show you that you can upload it and update it easily. If you just go through the things, it gives me a warning. We might go into it later because I've done something quick and dirty, and it says, it's okay, but I do remind you. Just have to wait. And you usually do this after you verified your, let's see. Usually you first verify locally. So I just start a local development server, and that's how you can make changes as well. But in the meantime, I wanted to show you the upload process. So right now I have one locally. If I go to the blog, I can add it very easily. And then my browser is behind the bar, so I'm just going to, yeah. And then this is the online version, which you are all seeing. If you refresh it, I just added some text. So it can be that easy to upload it, to make an edit, upload it to your live website, and bam, there are the changes. There are a lot of other people that use Docusaurus. I mean, developer.4d is one of them.
Mm.
If I go to developer.4d.docs, this looks different. They've adjusted the landing page. But if I go to any documentation, let's go to something recently, you see kind of the same layout that on the left, you have your main articles. In the middle is what you're reading, of course. And on the right, there's a little summary of, oh, within this page, I have these subjects. So if you go to a bigger page, you can easily go to different subjects depending on the headers. That's all done automatically. If we go to my example, you see the exact same layout. On the left, you have your main navigation. On the middle is what you're actually reading. And on the right, there's a smaller page navigation of the different headers that you've made. There are also other showcases. There's a lot of people that use Docusaurus for their documentation. It can be a simple personal website. I've seen a lot of different things. It can be as big as React Native that made their own customizations. And I think partially because you see Docusaurus is also powered by React. So if you do know React, if you do know JavaScript, if you do know a lot of those things, you can make customizations maybe more easily. But if you just want to get started and just want to make documentation, you don't have to know any of that. And that's the nice thing, because I don't know anything about React. And that's maybe because that's why React Native made some more customizations, because I assume they kind of know what they're doing. So let's get into it. I'm just gonna follow my documentation website and do it live for you all. And just to show that you can do it yourself as well. So yeah, if we want to get started, just a small overview. I'm gonna say the tools that I'm using, and actually gonna start making the page, personalize it, I think similarly to the 4DMethod example that I've made here. And then to deploy it to GitHub Pages, because my deployment right now is I'm using GitHub Pages, which is free to use if you have a GitHub account. And I think as long as you're not actively selling something on that website, it's within the terms of service, but do check for yourselves. Yeah. GitHub Page is also mostly a static website host. And what we do here with Docusaurus is creating a static website, because you don't have to log in, you don't have to do special things. It's all just text that you want to show. I do have doc search here, which I haven't fully implemented in this website as well. But there's also the official documentation of Docusaurus, which also uses Docusaurus itself, which has a lot of good tips and guides and walkthroughs and a lot more information if you want it. Also a lot more details, a lot of the customizations. And I want to mention using large language models or AI can be really useful here, because it's on the internet a lot. You just have to specify your Docusaurus version, and it can help you set up certain things as well and help you give any tips or leads or where to find it or how to implement it. It's not always perfect like any LLM, but because it's used as an open source something, a lot of people use it. A lot of people have open GitHub repos. It can be useful to use an LLM if you get stuck on something.
How much ramp up, or how much time did you take sort of coming away from the developer 4D.com demo and seeing the tools that they were using and to having like a hello world of your own?
Well, setting up the Hello World is super easy. And then doing the customization and all the things that you want specifically, that takes a lot more time.
Okay.
So one of the things is like this GitHub link is here automatically. And of course you can change the link itself. Yeah. A lot of people change it to this icon. Like, how do you do that? And all of those small little things, they were quite time consuming. But to actually set it up and of course write your documentation is the most work, but then actually uploading it, that's the easy part. But customizing it and making it different than how it comes out of the box, that's more of you do some JavaScript or React or some some other
Yeah.
things, and that's a bit more difficult.
No,
But
you're
if you
right.
want,
The content is what's most important, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and this landing page looks fine. Just replace maybe the SVGs if you want. It has this banner. Use your own color scheme, and we're gonna go into that. Uh, and then actually building all these pages. That's also easy. You just have to follow a file folder structure, and it does the exact same here on the left.
Nice.
So that's all really easy. If you want to do customizations, maybe you can hire someone of React or someone who's, if you really want. But just to set it up, make some edits and put it out there, relatively easy.
Cool.
And in the getting started, I also have a link to Obsidian, which is my preferred Markdown editor. Dockersaurus also uses Markdown. And as with Markdown, it's like a standard, but everyone implements it differently. And with Obsidian, you can change some settings, which we go over in configuration, to make it a little bit easier to work also with Dockersaurus. So they have a similar uh, Markdown implementation. I do use Git and GitHub, which is not necessary. The way I'm hosting it, it is necessary, of course, but to use Dockersaurus, Git and GitHub is not necessary. And I use Node.js to install npm packages and also initialize Dockersaurus itself. It just pulls it down. So the things you really need is actually only Node.js, but the other ones make it a little bit easier. And I do recommend Visual Studio Code. I like to use it as a file editor because we are gonna adjust some JavaScript files, and I like to use it as a Git GUI.
Mm.
So configurations, I do have Obsidian here, and there are some configurations that you can make in, let me go back and forth a little bit, files and links. And if they are set correctly, then it's the same standard as Dockersaurus, and you can just use it as a text editor. You just copy paste, drag things in, and it's the right format also for Dockersaurus. If you don't do it, then it's the standard Obsidian configuration, and it's actually the wrong format. Okay. Git itself, I do have some, this is some general how to install Git and configure your global name. I've already done it. You can go through it. There's also other helpful YouTube videos if you want. GitHub itself. I have included some parts where it's now the new standards of instead of the master branch, it's now the main branch, and you can go through that if you want. And let's generate a new website. So I'm going to open my file explorer. And let's see. Oh, no, wait. I'm going to go in git bash as a terminal. And yes, we are going to use some of the terminal, maybe scary for non-programming people, but let's just go through my documents and create a new, well,
Can you raise the font in that view there? There you go.
yes, that's a good idea. That's the one I didn't do.
Yeah.
Um, we're gonna go. I think I forgot to add a new folder. Yeah, my operating system is in Dutch, so
Hmm.
4DMethod. Let's call it number 2. And then I'm gonna go into that. So when I'm inside of that folder, let's initialize a classic. Oh. How do you paste in the terminal? Eh?
Hmm.
And it's saying, course, it's always when you want to show some things. Oh, okay. I don't have the latest version of Docusaurus installed, so it says, let me first download the latest one, and then let's install it. You can choose your preference, JavaScript or TypeScript. I don't have experience with TypeScript, so for now I'll just do JavaScript. And it's starting to install. I don't have to do anything yet. And once it has installed, it already has the whole base template website standard Docusaurus, all of it installed. So, and part of the standard, let me just put it to the side here so we can still see it going. Part of the standard is already basics. They also have some basics for you to go through, like, oh, how do I actually use Docusaurus to create a page, to create a document, to create a blog post. Some of the specific Markdown features, which can be really nice. The way they implement pictures, there's some things about that. You can include code blocks. There's some syntax highlighting, and then you have this copy feature. And it depends on what kind of documentation website you're making. If it's for internal use only, you probably use code blocks a lot. But if it's external, I mean, you're probably not gonna show your client any code. And this one is really nice. The what's it called? Admonitions. To have these kinds of tips or dangers or highlighted colors for anything you want to show.
Huh.
That's a Docusaurus specific feature. Let's see, it already has some tips here. It's the finished building. It says npm start the development server. You can build it for static, to create the static files. You can serve that, and you can actually deploy it. So let's see what it made. Just through the file explorer, which I can also make bigger, I think. Let's see. Because I made a 4DMethod 2. Oh, and it renamed it to my website. Yeah. So it is created, and I'm trying to see if I can make it bigger.
That's all right.
Yeah. So we already have the two most important parts, the blog and docs folders. So that's where you put your documentation in the docs. And if you want to use the blog, you put it over there. And it does a lot of extra things. It already makes a Git ignore, which is nice if you're going to use Git. There's some node modules it uses in the background. There's some source and static stuff. And we are going to use the docusaurus.config.js file a lot, if you'll see soon. I like to, let me just open a new window. I like to use VS Code to also go through the repo and do all of those things. Let's see, I want to open a new window.
That's nice that it builds the tutorial directly into your repository immediately.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that is something you should remove probably at some point. But in the beginning, I just kept it around for a while building that thing. So the nice thing is I know the shortcut for VS Code. And let me just take us back to the documentation. I made it for a reason because I forget a lot of things all the time. So from within VS Code, I like to have the terminal. I prefer to use git bash because not everything works in PowerShell for some reason. And it did already say if you run start, it's gonna build that local server again, and we can see changes done immediately. Oh yeah, I was still running the other one. You can only have one at a time, of course. It already opens it in your preferred browser, or I think your default browser. It's still doing things on the background while it already takes us there. I think it's because it's a first time build, it has to make all of the static elements. And you have your website. Looks familiar?
Oh, dinosaurs.
Yeah, the dinosaurs. So there's the tutorial, the intro, and some basics. There's the beginner blog post that you can remove easily if you want it later. But it already has all of the basics. You can put your own links here. You can remove some stuff if you like. It has the dark mode and light mode, which is really nice. Yeah, so that's the basics. You can already start just typing a lot of different kinds of texts if you want and do the customizations later. But for now, I want to show you. Oh, it is the same browser, of course. The GitHub part. So we are going to push this to GitHub. And that's also how we can make the hosting. So let's go to GitHub and make a new repo. Let's make a new one. It's called 4DMethod. Oh, docs2. It's a public one, and I don't have to put anything in it because we are going to connect to it and override it. There's other ways to do it, but I've noticed that if you make a repository first and then pull that down and then try to initialize Dockersaurus, it says like, no, there's already a document here, like a README or a git ignore. Like, no, there's already a document here. I'm not going to initialize here. That's weird. So, still the same browser. So we made a new repository, copy the link. That is, I don't think it's this one because it does a good .git at the end. Let me just go to this. I'll just remove it then. So let's see, we have git. We're gonna cd into our location, and that's if you really use the separate terminal, but I prefer using my terminal inside VS Code. So for some reason, it's still running something, but it shouldn't. Yeah. It's still running the local server, so let me Control C out of that or Command C out of that. Just make init. Yeah. Add everything to the repo. And because I'm on Windows, it replaces the line feed with, what is it? Original line endings. That's fine. It will just do that by itself. And let's just commit everything. Yeah. So this is just initializing the Git repository. I do have a visualizer, Git graph, where it says, yep, in my main branch, I've put an initial commit now in my local repository. And the goal is now to just send it through GitHub. And this is for anyone who hasn't had any experience with Git or GitHub yet. I mean, some people may have more experience, some may don't. But let's just go through it. And I do need to have that link. So I'm just going to add an origin. Okay. Let me just put it left and right. Maybe it's a little easier to look at like that. And let's connect our main branch with our upstream main branch. Okay, I might have not renamed it. It's always when you do it live, right?
It's always fun.
Yeah.
That's
Let
part
me
of the
just.
it's when you do it perfect in a demo, it doesn't often teach
Yeah.
people as much.
Let's see if I can just use the GUI to push the branch, and then it should also be fine. Because the thing is, I want my branch to be in the GitHub repo as well, because so far it was just local.
Mhm.
And now, if I refresh, it should be there.
Voila.
Yep. So now it's online, and we want to actually host it as well, which I think was the next step. Yeah. Oh no, we're not yet at the hosting. I think, yeah, customization, because we do have a page now. Let me see. Just closing some things I had open. So this is currently our page. I do have to npm run start again, because right now I've stopped the hosting. So my local host is unavailable. Oh, and I still have my other one hosting as well.
Hmm.
Yeah. No. So let me do that again. Doing two things at once is not recommended anyway.
Hmm.
So we're just going to host it with the command npm run start, which you can also make on Windows into a batch script that's double clickable if you want to use anyone that's not as technically capable, to be able to write things and just double click npm run start from the directory. And then it also starts this so they can immediately see their results. I'm going to Obsidian, and I'm going to open, no, different screen, open a folder as a vault. And Obsidian has this weird thing of saying, oh, a folder for me is a vault. That's the root folder. And then from there, I'm going to do all my things. So I just open it as a vault, and here it is. And I have my introduction here. La la la. And it should go as soon as this is saved. You can see the results in your local hosted website.
Hmm.
So this is really useful for when you're actually writing something, especially with like markdown stuff. Obsidian has a lot of features where you can see the reading mode. This is writing mode, and you can even see the source mode to see what you're actually writing in text. But if you leave it off, you're sort of in between, like, oh, this is how it will look. But if I go into it, I can see that with Markdown, the first header is with this symbol.
Hmm.
So let's go to a color scheme, which is used throughout the Docusaurus website. So I'm also going to go back to VS Code, because the color scheme, and they have a nice explanation on Docusaurus itself, and this thing, where if you put in a color, it will give you the color scheme back. So if we just choose a random color, like, oh, then you can use these hex values, and it will be a nice color scheme. And it even has a contrast rating. Does it look good in light mode, in dark mode? And even their own colors fail sometimes. So it's not as necessary.
Huh.
Yeah. So even the darkest kind of fails in the contrast rating. But if we go, let's see, to the source and CSS and custom CSS, we we have these colors that are used in light mode and in dark mode, and you can easily just change them. And I think I have something ready just to use. It's a little easier just to copy and paste. Yep. Also a nice thing about VS Code that it adds these little color things. Yep. So if I just change these color codes, save it, and oh, and let's go here. It's already changed the banner into purple and blue.
Huh.
And if you see the highlight of my mouse, it's also blue or purple. If we highlight something, the headers here, let's see all of the links, all of the things, all of it uses these color scheme. So very easily you've already customized your own website to your own colors.
That's cool. I like that
Yeah.
contrast tester.
Yep.
That's yeah, I don't know how many graphic editing pros are here, but that definitely makes it easier.
Oh wait, this was for light mode. So I've used your 4D method colors,
Nice.
which are mostly good.
Mostly.
Yeah. And for dark mode, it was the blue variant, which was very good.
Ooh,
So
nice.
good color scheme, Brent.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. Yes.
For
At least
the
for
dark.
dark mode anyways.
Exactly. So that's one of the easiest customization you can do. There's a lot of CSS things, if you're familiar with CSS, to target specific things. Like in the blog, one thing I've changed myself personally was if I click on it, it becomes white. I still wanted it to be blue. Some things like that.
Mm,
So you could go and inspect and see what kind of where the color comes from. These kind of IFM
mm,
variable names, and you can change them here as well. There's some quirks and maybe some things, some exceptions in that, but mostly you don't need to touch it, only if you want to do hyper customized things. So that was actually color scheme, quite easy. Then logo and landing page. So for that, I am going to open what I hinted at, the config file. And the configuration file already has a lot of things with comments where it says, hey, you should change this to your thing.
mm,
So here it says the production URL of your website with the hosting. We should probably change that to something else. Or here the title is my website. Maybe we want to change that, like in the tagline,
mm.
which happened to be the same as, hey, where's this? This banner.
Mm.
My site and dinosaurs are cool.
Yeah.
So if you ever question like, oh, where can I even find this? You can just search it within your. You should be able to just search it within your project, and then you see, oh, in the index.js, there is this line, and if I just change it here, it will also change here.
Mm.
So it can be that easy. You don't have to be an expert in JavaScript or Dockersaurus to be able to customize the things that are already there. If you want to add things that are not there, that's when you need some more things and expertise. But yeah, it's what you want. So the config file. We have here a Fave icon, which is the small little thing over there, which has a link we can change and make it a little bit wider. There are some URLs you can change, like the edit. If you see here below, there's edit this page, and you can link to your GitHub to actually have your users either make a comment like an issue. I think that's also possible, but standard, it goes to the uh, to the repo itself, and you can like make changes and commit that as a user. But you can turn it off relatively easily, and actually just have to make an issue or anything else. You can also remove it entirely. Let's see, where am I? This was an example. Yeah, I'm fighting the zoom bar a little bit here.
Hmm.
So, well, let me just start it off again. I think I closed it. So a lot of things you can change in the Dockersaurus config itself. Like here, your product social card, you can just change it here. Maybe have a different image. I am going to be a little lazy and just copy from one project to another. So I also have the 4DMethod docs here. I already have some images. Let's see, it's in static images. I do have a few of them already there. I'm just going to replace them here in the static images. So I'm going to replace the fave icon and add the 4D method. Yes, I want to replace it. 4D method.png. And I'm also going to change it in the social card. Method.png. And there should be a different PNG as well, the dinosaur. And I'm just gonna look for it if it's there. Dockersaurus.png. And because I don't remember, I'm just gonna look it up. Where is it referenced? And see, it's in a few different places, but mostly. Oh, this is just in articles, so I can keep that. So let's see if I reload it, then you can see the favorite icon changing. It's super tiny, I know. And here's one that I want to change, so the main one. I'm just gonna look back into my, yeah, Dockersaurus config. I do have to save it as well. And then it will reload. And yeah, that's when it changes. Sorry. You do have to save it and then it will start reloading and then it's applied. So already in just a few steps, which take a bit longer because I have an audience. You change the logo, you change the colors, and it's very personalized already. Of course, you want to probably change the landing page with maybe your own pictures and text, but then it already looks good enough. And I think the next one is deployment. So we will be deploying to GitHub pages. We already connected our local repo to our GitHub repo. There are some config file changes you should make depending on if you host your repo under an organization, you have to use the organizational name. If you use it under your personal account, you use your personal name. So in the config, let me see, still the config file. And where do you want to host it? Well, I'm going to host it here. You probably want to host it somewhere else. And you are free to use any hosting you want, but to host it first on GitHub Pages is easy for my workflow. And after that, you can also in GitHub Pages put it under your own domain. So it will be hosted on both, but that's something to get into maybe later. Base URL is here, but number 2. And it has a lot of tips, like the production URL of your website. For GitHub Pages deployment, it's often the project name.
Right. So I mean, once you get all this set up, then most of the time you never really change it, right?
Nope.
Yeah.
No. I most of my time was looking up how I did these things,
Hmm.
going over it again because it's just the setup is the most work, and after that, it's what I showed you. In Obsidian, you make a change, you npm run start to see if it's good, and then you uh, npm run deploy. Or what thing did I use earlier? Git user, your username, npm run deploy, and it'll just put it up there after all the setup. So I think I make weekly changes, if not more often, if I do more documentation. And it doesn't take me more. The most part is writing it, and to actually upload it doesn't take more than a few minutes.
Do you have several people submitting content for your documentation, or do you do it mostly?
It's mostly me. I did have one other developer that used the edit this page feature.
Oh, okay.
And which was a surprise to me because I didn't know. So I pushed to GitHub and it said, wait, I'm integrating some changes. And it did a pull and push and it just put it there. And I was like, hey, someone made a change. Nice.
Ah, that's a nice feature.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Organization name, project name. Well, method talks to. That's all fine. And yeah, let's just go and deploy it. So I'm going to stop it with Control C. Use your own username here. And it's okay. I'm not going to show any passwords or anything. Sometimes it does ask you to log in. And I usually log in via the browser. There's other ways to do it with like a token,
Mm.
which I think I did before. Oh, yeah, no to $signs.
Hmm.
And the fun thing about this is I thought I had to do a lot of settings in GitHub Pages first, but I don't think it's needed at all. If you just make these changes, push it like this with this command, which I have in the website as well, of course, it should just work. And we're going to see if that's true.
Hmm.
And if it does, I can share the link, and that's what we've just created.
That's cool. Now, do you tend to write documentation for your users more, or do you also do documentation for how the application is structured in the code?
It's mostly the second thing, like how is this
Mm,
structured? Maybe what's the idea behind it, if I had a say in it, or if I've heard
mm,
some of the ideas behind it.
hmm.
So it is, of course, a little bit higher level than actually the code itself, because we also have access to our code.
Right.
Um, but yeah, a little more, what's the structure here? Like what's more overarching architecture?
Sure.
So it's more of our internal thing. So here it does ask, hey, could you sign up into GitHub? I'm going to sign in with my browser because I'm already logged in. And it says, okay, good. We're going to continue. And here it has a few, oh, git push command has failed. Do I have access? Okay, always good. Let's see. I'm just going to try it again because that's, of course, the first thing you do. Origin. Yeah, okay, I might have to create the thing first. Hmm. Maybe because we skipped a step somewhere earlier. Let's see what it does. In the Yeah, it hasn't made the new branch yet. So the thing I found was it feels kind of intimidating to use the what's it called? The terminal like this, and it does a lot of things, but essentially I'm not doing much.
It looks very fancy though,
Yeah, exactly.
and that's what's important.
You can feel like a hacker. No. Um, let me see if I can create a branch from here. New branch. Because it wants to push to GitHub pages. And maybe because the way I did it earlier, or when I was testing it, I actually connected the two because I already had something there, and then override it. But now it's going to try to connect to this GitHub pages brand. Let's see if it does. It does often have warnings or some tips or explicit trailing slash site config. Okay. So I think it tells me to do something like this. I might have to log in to GitHub again. And it is part of what I've noticed, like, oh, it's that easy. It just, oops. That does sometimes happen. So sign in again. And now it doesn't want to.
Curse of the demo.
Yeah, it has
But,
struck finally.
but when you're creating content, say you want to add an image in the markdown page,
Yeah, let's go over that. That might be a
yeah,
little easier.
you once we get to if you want to add a screenshot or something along those lines, I imagine you have to add the file into the image directory.
Not necessarily. I
Okay.
like to, uh, especially with blogs, to have a separate file folder for every blog that I write.
Mm.
And also for the method to have a file or a folder for my images. But you don't need to actually.
Hmm.
And so let's go over here. We have our documentation. Let's just create a new for the method section.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that should have been a folder because I want to also show you. So a folder is more of a section
Okay.
here.
Uh-huh.
And let's put that into there. And
Now it's
oh,
nested.
I put it inside. Yeah. Let's just put it outside because it's that easy.
Uh-huh.
And there's the section. And because there's nothing in it yet, it doesn't treat it as a section.
Uh-huh.
But if I add more things, like a second page, then it understands like, oh, I have to go out like that. And the fun thing here, what I did, the folder is called 4D section or 4D method section. The page is also called 4D method section. So if you click on the section itself, it goes to this page that says hello.
Oh.
But if I would have changed the name to something else, then it should be its own page. Yeah, so it's a little confused because hey, the page is not there anymore. Then it's its own page.
Huh.
And if you click on the section itself, it doesn't have anything, only its pages.
It just goes directly to the first page, or at least to the expanded options.
No, it only expands this
Yeah.
time.
Okay.
You can also do something more fancy like they did here, which is not something you're able to do in Markdown, but it's create like a landing page. For the developer also does this, and they recently changed the default of this.
Hmm.
But that's something you can do with a, let's go to the docs in VS Code, and the tutorial extras have a category.json file where you can have labels and things, and it's a bit more manual. Not the biggest fan of it, but it is still simple. I mean, they have it in their example, and you can just put it there.
Okay.
Yeah. And everything that's under it, I think they do it automatically. Like, hey, I know that I have these 2 pages, so I already list them here. It just depends on what you want your label to be, which is the title here. And this type is a generated index, so it generates it for you, but you can also do it more manually.
Well, like you said, you can just search in the repository and take over what's being shown.
Yeah. And I do like to show the tip. Um, this is a useful tip. And if we go to the page, it makes it pretty.
Yeah. It's nice to have that stuff out of the box.
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah,
have to bend over backwards to control the formatting.
exactly. And of course, the thing about Markdown that most people say is like, oh, it's still readable even when you don't use Docker source, or even if you don't use Obsidian, even if you don't. It's just plain text.
Mm-hmm.
So these things are nice. They add a little flair to your website. They're not even needed, but even outside of it, it's also still readable. So if we do a little screenshot or a little snippet of the website to put into the website. I don't think this works, the copy pasting. Oh yeah, it does. It just puts it somewhere at the root level. So because I just pasted it, it just puts it at root level. I think I can also, if I move it, Obsidian should be smart enough to say, I still hold my link. So it edited this link. And it seems like I haven't changed my settings in this one. So this is the part that I mean, like, oh, in Obsidian, it seems like it works. But then in a test area, which I always keep open, it doesn't because it's the wrong format. So I'm gonna follow my own advice and do some of the configuration again. So settings, files and links. New link format has to be relative path to file, and I don't want to use wiki links. So, but this is not a good example of if you do have your image already, you can also just drag it in. And now it is here in our example website. So if we make just a new one and copy paste that, because a lot of people, they don't want to manage their own folders and files. You just paste it in and it does work. It's just not as managed. Go figure.
Cool.
So yeah.
Now, do you link? Do you have links coming out of your application to your DocuSource documentation?
We don't. No, we're not that organized, but it is possible. And there is a way, and it's in the DocuSource documentation if you really want to look it up, to specify like names or links yourself within your Markdown document so it doesn't change. But it also auto generates links to certain sections, even if you want. Yeah. So that if you have a long page, you even get to the right header. It does some of it by itself. So here you can already see in the link, it's migration v2 manual.urls because I'm in the URL section here. And if I go down, I don't think it changes, only if you click. Yeah. So there are ways you can link to it automatically, but there's also a way to have some more control over it if you really want. Yeah. Because you don't want to have your application and then the documentation and something changed in either of them, either in the documentation, and then the link is broken. You don't want that.
I've often found myself wanting links to work within the 4D method editor. This is a link to some sort of supporting documentation or otherwise shared document, anything. And I put the link in nonetheless, but it'd be nice just to be able to hover click on it, say
Yeah.
this is where it goes. And,
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, you do know that 4D also implemented that themselves. They also use Docusaurus.
Yeah.
So within their own code editor, you can also go to uh,
Right. Yeah, that's
the
what kind of
documentation. Yeah,
made me think about that. Yeah. But I guess
yeah,
that's probably controlled at a higher level. The command token and the root is the link is probably constructed with some other logic. But yeah.
probably. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And that is you're able to implement it. I haven't done that yet, and that I see it more of an advanced feature, which if you get into this, you'll see. Um, but yeah, that only has my issue of not being able to upload the thing.
Well, it's I'm sure you'll sort it out immediately after we click end recording.
Probably, yeah. I mean, it might have to do with let's see, in the getting started. Last time I connected to the upstream with these commands, and I didn't do it this time because it didn't want to either. So yeah.
And the rest. I think just as a reminder, 4D already uses Markdown for the standard documentation that we see in the Explorer, for instance. So if you select a method and look at the documentation, that's all Markdown. And so most of us probably already have some kind of Markdown editor of choice. And this is just taking it to another level where um, we can have more generalized documentation, Markdown documentation for the whole app.
Yeah. Yeah. You can, well, there are some differences. There's some copy and pasting that doesn't always work. No, I doesn't really want to upload. Because there are some slight changes in the Markdown standard that they use. So sometimes some things may come out a little different than expected, but mostly you can copy and paste your documentation and then host it online.
Are there any questions from the group, sort of, where to take this next, or other ideas? Yep, Doug. Oh,
Oh, we don't hear you well.
yeah.
I have to put my microphone in front of my mouth.
There we
I have
go.
a comment because we use Docusaurus predominantly for user-facing, customer-facing documentation on our systems, and it's not a developer function. We've made it a support function. So although developers sometimes will write documentation, we will then push it to GitHub, and then it will all be quality controlled and spell checked by our support team, who do the majority of the documentation. And there are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of pages of documentation for our user documentation. And then what they will then, once they published it, they will build it and they will put it on the, they don't do it through Git pages. They put it onto the website as a distribution folder, and it just feeds out from the client's website the documentation for the customer. What we then do as a developer is we put context-sensitive, contextual links within the application so that not only can so a customer can click on a question mark in a window, and it will open up the Docusaurus documentation at that point, so that the customer can see what they're supposed to be doing in that window or that function. And all of this used to be managed by Word documents, and you used to have hundreds and hundreds of Word documents explaining different areas of the system with multiple pages. and it was an absolute nightmare for support. And now support manage it, and it's their domain, and it's not something that developers really think about much.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they, what tool do they use to edit
They
the
use
Visual Studio?
Visual Studio, and they just edit the markdown because it really is that simple. And they
Yep.
just run the command to serve it, so they can see it as they're building it in a web page, and then they just run the command to npm run build, and then
Wow.
they take the build and they replace it on the website.
Well, and that's one of the nice things about Markdown, isn't it? That you don't get lost with too much design choices, you know.
Yeah.
No, it's just there.
Mhm.
We structure the images in the source image folder into different sections as well, that largely follows the documentation sections, just to make it, because there's a lot of assets, because there are literally thousands of images for all the different parts of the system. So it just makes it neater for them to do it that way.
Yeah, it
So
is
yeah,
advisable to manage your images a little better than just what I showed, copy pasting, and it just puts it
yeah,
somewhere.
Mhm.
But that's up to your own discretion.
yeah.
So yeah, exactly. npm run build actually builds the static files, which you can host any way you want. What I want to show you is to host it on GitHub Pages, but something with the connection to the repo is not working correctly.
Well, that's all right. You know,
Yeah.
there's
We
always you want to leave some for part two, right? You know, it's
Yeah,
yeah.
I do have the example one that is built up here. It does work. It's made the same way, but with a little bit more time.
Hmm.
Um, and you can also go to, I don't think I've linked to my own GitHub. Oops. Um, if you go to my GitHub, I'll probably edit the thing itself to actually link to my repo.
Uh-huh.
Um, because in the example one, there's also the Git history of what I actually did here and I tried to keep it clean.
Uh-huh.
The steps that I made, the changes I made to the documents itself, it's not that much.
Well, and so we can all follow the commit history and see you know,
Yeah.
we can let them know where his demo went wrong.
Exactly. If you
Um,
know, open an issue and we'll go through it. Yeah.
yeah. Uh,
Hey, Jim, I got a quick question.
Yes.
Um, I was pulled away at something else going on here, but can you show inside of 4D source code the markup that you use to generate these pages? And can you just mention for my benefit what tool you use to parse that markup out of the 4D source into something that Obsidian can work with?
I don't have an example. If so, does someone have a 4D Markdown document example they can send in the chat, maybe? Because we don't really use project mode in production, so I don't have any documentation written in 4D markup or
Oh,
Markdown. So
right. He didn't quite show that in the example. It was more authoring new documentation directly in Obsidian.
okay.
But I had the same thought, you know, be interesting to find out, you know, or um, uh, to have a way to publish the actual 4D Markdown documentation in this manner. And I would imagine you'd have to tie in. Not sure how you would do that. That's for someone more familiar with the structure here, but I would have to assume the
It's all in the files. It's all in all those each method. So we're talking about method documentation. So each
yep.
method has its own markdown file. So
Yeah.
you could literally parse that folder and
Yeah.
I mean and take it and throw every individual file. It wouldn't be very structured in terms, it would just be a big long list of methods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, so unless you were using, I don't know how much the home folder and organizing it through that would help either, because that's
Not
never
exposed,
really
right?
been implemented in a
You
logical way.
you could hijack the folders JSON
Hey,
to
James,
Yeah.
can you either
Oh.
oh, to use that structure from the Explorer and copy the markdown files from each of the folders in the Explorer to your Docusaurus folder structure in a similar manner. But that's a bit of a leap from all things are possible, right?
I mean, it is even possible to have Docusaurus inside of your other repo and have it from there. It's a bit more complex. I haven't really looked into it because I like to have it separate, so it's public and I can host it like I do now. And we don't want our code base to be public. But they do have documentation in the Docusaurus website itself to have like a what do you call it, monorepo. To actually have your own repository and your website maybe in the same repository, but to host only the website part of it. But then still you might have to copy some things over or make a reference to somewhere else, and then it's not that structured. So maybe you want to write your own thing that copy and pasted things, put it into certain folders. So it's a bit more structured. There are ways, but I thought for this demo it's a bit far-fetched to go through it, and especially I don't write the documentation in the 4D editor itself yet.
Right.
So
Yeah,
I
no,
wasn't there yet.
that would be that would certainly be an interesting part too, in order to expose the 4D markdown files automagically, through
Yes.
through some logic, copy pasty, and keep the structure you would expect that you've created in the 4D Explorer, assuming that that you use the 4D Explorer. Not everybody does in their projects. Yeah, sadly, I I can't work without it myself. I'm like completely flying blind. Um, but no, this is all it's a great demonstration of how you can go from nothing to your own Docusaurus site, in one go here, and everyone's got their own content that would be applicable to their situation.
Yeah.
But
I do remember a question from the happy hour.
mhm.
Someone said, "Oh, why not just use your GitHub repository, the README file or that Markdown part?"
Hmm.
But the nice thing is, you don't have to go to GitHub because a lot of end users are like go to GitHub and be directed, and there's a lot of buttons, a lot of things to be distracted by.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to have your repo set on public because it can be something separate. And of course, it's a bit more elaborate, I guess, and you can implement a search function. There's a bit more things you can do with it.
Well, and you can
So,
control the styling and the landing pages and so on.
so there's nothing wrong with using other things, but this is like a next step if you want to go there or if you need to go there.
Cool. Any other questions? This was a very interesting demo. Thanks, Jim. And I think you're gonna have a lot of it when you do move to project mode. I bet you'll have some great ideas for integrating more directly with the actual Markdown in 4D. Um,
Maybe by that time I'll be back.
Yeah, that's right. Well, any more other questions or comments? As usual, we do have a page on the 4D forum that's dedicated to this presentation, and you can ask questions directly there, or reach out to Jim over his GitHub page, or directly in the 4D Happy Hour. I'm sure this will be a featured conversation this week on Friday.
We'll see. I'm usually
I
there.
could almost guarantee that.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Jim, and thanks to everybody at 4D and everybody here for taking part in the demo and the conversation. And look forward to seeing you all next time. In the meantime, you can also support the group via Patreon, and feedback is always appreciated, good or bad. I don't mind. My feelings, are long since dead in my soul, so it's okay. Just let me know what you think. All right. Well,
Thank you, Brent.
thanks everybody, and look forward to seeing you next time.
Thanks, Brent. Thanks, Jim.
Bye bye.
All right.